What I did was set up a Fiverr account and just offered to set up your Google ad campaign.
And you were charging them literally $30 at the time?
Literally $30.
So yeah, I wish I could say that I was born with this entrepreneurial spirit, but I wasn't.
And I finally cracked the $10,000 a month barrier.
And you cracked it and never went back down below, right?
Nope, never. Just scaled to the moon. In my opinion, that's kind of where I became an agency.
This makes sense, and this is so sexy.
Basically, then the end of your freelancing journey.
That was it. Yep. From there is when you proposed starting a company with me.
So come join us in our very free group.
Very expensive free group.
Your spouse asks what you're listening to. You just have to say, that agency show. Yeah. That's when the questions stop, because they probably don't care.
And we're back.
Episode 2.
Episode 2. We won't say the working title.
We have a title.
We have a title. It's not working anymore.
Let's just go for it.
Freelancing Origins of an 8-figure agency.
Yes, that is the working title.
The working title.
Of this episode.
When this hits YouTube or Apple Podcasts, it may be more or less clickbaity. Who knows?
But we do have a title for the show.
We do, indeed.
For the podcast.
We didn't even talk about that in the first episode.
Yeah.
That agency podcast.
No.
See? Already confused. Should have wrote it down. That agency show.
That agency show.
Which is why our group is That Agency Group. You can tell that we're big fans of the brand.
Well, it just makes it easy.
It does.
If your spouse asks what you're listening to, you just have to say, that agency show.
Yeah.
And that's when the questions stop, because they probably don't care.
That about says it.
What are the freelancing origins of an 8-figure agency?
Well, I think it starts with you. You certainly started before I kind of joined your timeline later on. So let's start with where you started. You mentioned in the last episode that you first got introduced to in this because you're an entrepreneur trying to learn how to run your own ads. But I'd love to hear, how did you even make that step into starting your own business? I'm sure you're doing something prior to that. And so what was it you were doing, and what was kind of the arc into starting your own business?
So basically, should have started my own business much younger. Was very entrepreneurial as a kid, selling basketball cards, selling anything I could get someone to buy from me, selling pizza at lunchtime. You could buy a full Domino's pizza for $6, which had 8 slices, or you could buy a pizza for $1 per slice. So I would go stand in line for all my friends. I'd buy like 2 pizzas. I would bring them back, sell the slices for $1 a piece. And then I would basically eat like 4 pieces of pizza for free.
That's hilarious.
Nobody really told me I was an entrepreneur. I didn't really know what that was. I went down the path most kids go down, especially in the late 90s, of doing well in high school, going to college. So went into college having no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So that's why I majored in music.
Great choice.
Yes. Fantastic choice. There's no degree that you can get more jobs with than a music degree.
Yeah, I've always heard that. Always go into the arts.
So I didn't actually finish the music degree because I got about 5 years into that. Had about 2 years left if I wanted to finish my music major. Because as a music major, I was taking the minimum number of credits to get the full amount of financial aid I could get. Right. So it was going to take me 7 years. Also, a lot of those credits weren't required because I was taking band classes multiple times. So 5 years in, I decided I didn't want to do this anymore. I didn't want to be in college anymore. Figured out that I could switch to a communication major. Also a very worthless degree, obviously. But it would get me out of school a year sooner than sticking with the music major. So graduated with a communications major, music minor, didn't go to my graduation ceremony, just kind of moved on with my life. Got a job eventually working at a call center. So
I just want to stay on the college for a quick second. I do assume you had a passion for music, which is why you did it, right? Or was it just, it was an easy entry?
Yeah. No, like what happened is I played trumpet in high school. Went to like a music camp and figured out, hey, this is fun. And I'm getting better at it. So now that I'm actually practicing, I'm getting better. So I found myself in the position of being the first chair trumpet player at my high school, which gave me this sense of significance and, oh, this is what I actually want to go to college for. Even though my band teacher tried to talk me out of going to the college I was going to, because I was going to this very musical college. I didn't even make it into the School of Music from my freshman year, because I wasn't good enough as a trumpet player. So I went to college undeclared, practiced like 7 hours a day, re-auditioned. I made it into the School of Music as a sophomore. So yes, I liked music. I enjoyed playing the trumpet. It was something I was somewhat good at, gave me a sense of significance. Ultimately, just kind of got like drowned out in this music school I was in, where I was nowhere near the best trumpet player anymore. Right. I realized, if I'm the bottom of the barrel at this music school, what chance do I have actually earning a living doing this? Yeah. The option was basically to become a band teacher, which I never wanted to do. So yeah, I just kind of used it as a way to slack off, really, for years, is why I stuck college out as long as I did.
The reason I asked too is that I do think it's important that people do follow their passions from time to time, and that it is important to understand that this podcast is through the lens of entrepreneurialism and making money and growing business. But the first time you told me that you went to college for music, I was envious. I was like, wow, I wish I did that. I played an instrument. Why didn't I do that? But then it's interesting to hear as you mature, right? You begin looking more and more to your future and what is to come of it. And that's obviously what happened to you, where you're like, well, what's the end of this? What is the point of this? Chasing passion when you're young is great. But at one point, what are you actually going to do with your life? And obviously business and money was something that started to take priority.
It took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree. I had also taken time off in there. I'd taken a year and a half off. So by the time I got out of college, I was old, quote unquote old. I wasn't the normal age of a college graduate. And I still really didn't have any marketable skills. So I went to work for a call center.
As you do when you graduate college.
And we were basically doing customer service for online websites. So people would buy stuff from toysrus.com was one of the clients, and they would get the wrong toy in their order, and they'd call and chew me out for it, because of course I had everything to do with them getting the wrong toy. So that was my job. I quickly worked my way out of being a frontline call taker. Started doing more managerial work, kind of worked my way up, which isn't that hard at a call center if you have some sort of business acumen and you show up to work every day and that type of thing.
It's easy to understand. They're tracking minutes on a phone and closed tickets or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And once you understand that, it's pretty easy to get through, I assume.
Yeah. So, worked my way up. So I was a mid-level manager at this call center. Just absolutely hated it. Took advantage of, they had a tuition reimbursement program there. So I actually went back to school part-time to get a second degree. This time was in business administration, which really taught me not anything, it didn't teach me any more about business than my music degree. Right. I can't point to a single thing that I learned in college that I remember, that I'm using today. I'm sure just the fact that I was doing something productive was better than doing nothing. Yeah. So I can give college credit for that. But it didn't actually teach me how to do anything I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't recommend college for anybody unless you know what you want to do and you know how college and the specific classes you're going to take and the specific professors you're going to learn from, unless you know how all of that is going to get you to be able to do what you want to do.
Right.
if you don't know that, if you don't even know who your professors are going to be at college, I would not go to college. I would not recommend it.
Which is why I was significantly, ahead of my time by not going. And instead, I slept on a dorm room couch of my buddies for 2 years, pretty well unemployed the whole time. But I got to go to the parties, which was all I cared about. So, and I got to do that without paying tuition. So,
well, yeah. So you came out way ahead of me. Mm-hmm. Those are some expensive parties.
Yeah.
I'm still paying for the financial aid for those parties. I'm still paying that back.
I was just at an event, and the guy that was presenting was a punter, professional in the NHL. I won't say his name. And he made the joke that he was the highest paid player on the team because on average he played 4 minutes and 27 seconds a game, and his salary was like $15 million. He's like, so if you divided the minutes I was on field by my salary, I was the highest paid person in the league. So it's just kind of funny. The most expensive parties you can go to if you divide the parties by your tuition.
Yeah. Working at the call center, going to school part-time. And then in the midst of all this, I thought it'd be a great idea to start a business. The business I chose kind of chose me. So I was just talking to a buddy of mine. He was doing this thing where he was basically going into houses that had been foreclosed on. And the bank would hire him to go to these houses and basically make sure it wasn't totally falling apart. So you go in, change the locks, you winterize the pipes so they don't explode and cause more problems. If there's like a hole in the roof, you patch it up. You just kind of you turn a house into something that isn't going to get worse. You help the bank protect their investment. At some point in the process, you might need to clean it out because, and this was like after the housing crisis. This was 2008, 2009, really, when I was doing this. 2010, I guess. So people would get foreclosed on. They basically leave everything behind. They leave half their stuff behind because they don't have anywhere to take it. And they're not going to like lose a security deposit because they didn't clean out their house. I was used to going in and out of apartments and like you always had to clean it out or you were going to lose your security deposit. But these people getting foreclosed on didn't do that. So they just left it behind. Sometimes they totally trashed the house on purpose because somehow it was the bank's fault that they weren't paying their mortgage that they couldn't afford. So there's lots of crazy stuff. But so there's an industry where companies go and they kind of take care of these houses until the bank can turn around and resell it. So just because my friend was kind of doing this, he was working for a guy that hired him to do this. I thought, what a great idea. Let's start a business doing this. So that's what we did. One of the worst business decisions I made was to start this business.
Right.
It was the worst business ever because the bank wouldn't pay you very much.
Right.
You'd have to go take pictures of everything you were doing. If you had to change the front door lock, you take a picture of the lock that was there, take a picture of yourself changing the lock. So you'd have to like hold a screwdriver up to the lock because they needed an action photo of you changing the lock. And then you'd take another picture with the new lock on. And you did this for anything that you would do in the house.
Jesus.
You'd take pictures of like a broom showing how that you were sweeping the floor. So then you'd upload all these pictures to this system and then get paid for it.
And I assume that it's like open market, right, for the banks. And that's why they weren't paying very much. It was more like, we have these houses that need this work. Who's willing to do them? Like, is that how you got a contract or how?
Kind of, yeah. It was like you had to be vetted to a certain degree.
Okay.
But really what it was is there were a few major companies nationwide who worked for the banks directly. And then you would work for these major companies just in your local area.
Got it.
So, yeah. So you were just kind of getting what you could get. And there's a lot of guys with a pickup truck who don't care about making money, who just want to get their hands dirty. So they didn't have to pay people very much to do this work. And I was one of those guys. I was one of these guys coming from the call center. My frame of reference was like a $12 an hour job. So anything that I could do where it felt like I just did something for an hour and made more than $12 felt like a win to me.
Right.
So long story short, this business just kind of got out of hand. We needed all this equipment. The worst part is we weren't getting paid from the bank for months. Like it would take 90 days for us to get paid. So huge cash flow problems.
Yeah.
Because we had expenses, we had payroll, we had to get like a plow to plow these driveways in the winter. We needed a lawnmower to mow the lawns in the summer. And it just wasn't sustainable. So at one point, I saw a documentary about 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And they were talking about junk removal and how they'd kind of built this empire of, doing junk removal. And that kind of flipped a switch for me where I was like, wow, this might work for us. I
got a truck.
Yeah, we have a truck. We know how to take trash out of houses. We know how to bring it to the dump. We have the people to do it. And if we can just do this, if we can get homeowners to pay us to do this, we can get the money right away. We don't have to wait 3 or 4 months to get paid from the bank, which, you were missing a photo of this, so we're not going to pay you for that.
Right.
So that's what we did. Went into the junk removal business. I had a partner in that business, the one who had originally given me the idea. We had basically partnered up, started doing junk removal.
And is this like with a pickup truck?
So what we literally had was a used U-Haul.
Oh, cool.
So it was a used U-Haul, which we had, put our own business logo on the side of, basically. At first, we just had trailers that we would haul behind a truck. And eventually got the used U-Haul, which was cool. Then we had a new problem, which is we needed to find customers. We needed to find people to give us money to take the junk out of their house. So that problem is a problem that gets solved by marketing, right? So this is what I really got into marketing for, had lost a bunch of money doing the first foreclosure maintenance business. Finally got into this junk removal business where we weren't losing money anymore, but now we weren't really making it because we didn't have enough customers. So I just needed customers. So did all the marketing stuff I could, listened to all the marketing podcasts I could. We were doing search engine optimization. We were mailing postcards. We had our big phone number and website on the side of our truck. Did like anything you could imagine. We had ads in the phone book.
Really? Bandit signs?
Didn't have bandit signs.
Oh, that's where you went wrong.
Yeah, we did not put signs on the side of the road, but other than that, yeah, we pretty much did it all. And most of it worked. We were sending out direct mail postcards. That worked. We were getting calls. Got to the point where we weren't doing any more foreclosure work. We were just doing the junk removal work. Now, during all of this, I was still working a full-time job at the call center.
Really? I didn't realize that.
And going to school for like 6 credits.
The business admin.
Yeah. So I wasn't doing a lot of the actual like junk removal work. I would on weekends or when I had time, but I was doing more of the business work. So I'd go to my job during the day. At night, I'd be working on the business, figuring out marketing and all that stuff. And that's why I was able to quit my job. Just because I could see some potential here. I could see that this could grow into something. The main thing is I just did not like the job. I was not cut out to really work for somebody else. When I quit my job, we weren't making money as the junk removal business. I made the decision that if I were to put all of my energy into this, maybe and hopefully we would start to make money. So quit the job, went all in on junk removal, and we did start to make money. We decided the town that we were in, which was only about 60,000 people, wasn't big enough to support our goals, which were bigger than that. So we opened another business in another city. Same business, same logo, different business name, because we had the name of the city as part of the business name for SEO purposes. So opened the new business. My partner stayed back, ran the original business. I moved to the other city to run the new business. That was going relatively well. Like, we basically doubled our revenue. We're making a little bit of money. Not by my standards now of money, but by the standards of my $12 per hour call center job, I was at least making money. Mm-hmm. So that all happened, kind of got through spring, summer, fall, got into winter, and the junk removal significantly slowed down. Because people just they're not cleaning out their garage in the winter. They're not trying to clean out their basement in winter.
They're not moving. They're not doing that kind of stuff.
I was just kind of left with all this time on my hands. I had learned all this marketing stuff, including Google Ads, and decided I wanted to just get really good at Google Ads.
How did, was there anything that initially got you into Google Ads, or it was just a part of the stack you were doing? It was just one of the things on the list and you watched a YouTube video on it? Or was there a course or anything that stuck out to you?
So after I had done it for a while, then I got a book, the book by Perry Marshall and Mike Rhodes.
Yep.
I think it's just called The Ultimate Guide to Google AdWords or something.
Yep.
Read that book a couple times. It all made total sense. I was able to improve the campaigns that I had been running for the junk removal business, and then really realized that I knew so much more just from reading that book and from having the hands-on experience running my own campaigns. Mm-hmm. I knew so much more than almost any business owner trying to do Google Ads.
You mean people just walking through the setup wizard isn't the best way to run ads?
Yeah. So
turns out.
Exactly. Yeah. Google will guide you through creating a campaign.
All the way to putting your credit card on file.
Yeah. They love taking their credit card from you. There's just nothing they love more than taking your credit card, and they would love to just optimize your campaign for you. Mm-hmm. So they can optimize it for you to give them the maximum amount of money that you can.
Every agency owner who's ever taken a strategy call by Google knows.
Yeah, so that was the landscape, was basically all these businesses, and this was the end of 2013. A lot of businesses were just kind of getting into Google Ads, knowing that they needed to because all their competitors were. They'd start an account. Google would tell them how to set everything up. At some point, many of them, definitely not all of them, would realize that the way things were running just weren't working. Mm-hmm. A lot of businesses to this day are still just spending money on Google Ads. They have no idea if it's bringing them customers. They're not tracking anything. That was going on even more so back at that time.
Yeah.
So through my experience, I just kind of realized I had something to offer here. I thought I could help businesses with their Google Ads, and I was really thought it was a cool system. I thought Google had really built a cool platform here. I wanted to learn it better while helping businesses with it. So at that time, I didn't even really know what, I didn't really know there were agencies that did Google Ads. That's how ignorant I was. What I did is jumped onto Fiverr, Fiverr.com, which is a website where basically you can pay people $5 to do things for you. Mm-hmm. Whether that was design a logo or record a short video for you. You go on Fiverr and you look up these different things people will do for you for $5. You pay them $5 and they do it. And it's mostly people not in the United States, people who $5 is a lot more money to them than it is for me. But what I did was set up a Fiverr account and just offered to set up your Google ad campaign. And my cost to do that was $5.
So at this point, were you still in college for business admin?
No, I had finished finished that degree.
So it was just, you were still operating the junk removal business, and now you were kind of delving into Fiverr gigging to set up Google ad accounts.
Yep.
Okay.
Someone would hire me on Fiverr. So I was able to get people to hire me for this pretty quickly because I put myself out there. I put a video of myself out there. People could see who I was and that I was somewhat well-spoken.
And Fiverr probably wasn't overly saturated at this point either.
Right. And, they could see that I was an American, which I think, was to my advantage on Fiverr. So people would hire me. And for $5, they'd want me to set up their campaign. And to me at the time, I really just knew the basics, right? I knew how to do keyword research, how to structure a campaign, how to write an ad. So that's basically what I would do. I would write some ads. I would target the keywords that this business would need to target, and I'd just set up their campaign. It was probably worth about $5, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't anything spectacular, but for $5, these people shouldn't have expected much out of me. From what I saw, most people never even launched these campaigns, right?
And did you have any bigger aspirations at this point? You were just happy to get the $5 to set them up, or were you looking at that as a tripwire into a management fee?
I had my only goal at this point was to learn how to do Google ads better so that I could do a better job for my business.
Right.
I thought by getting all this experience, setting up these campaigns for other businesses, that I would be able to set up bigger and better campaigns for my junk removal business. So that was actually my only motivation. I was spending hours building a campaign for $5. And Fiverr took $1 of that. So I was getting $4.
Yeah.
So it was not about the money. So yeah, that kind of went on for a month. My Fiverr gig really took off because I was getting good reviews. I was getting found in the search when people were searching Google AdWords. I was one of the top results. So all these people were hiring me. I was building all these campaigns. I had all this time. I didn't have a family. I didn't have anything else going on. So I could sit around all day and just work for $2 an hour, and it was fine.
Yep.
Eventually, Fiverr kind of graduated me, and they said, "Okay, you're doing well. Now you can charge more for your gig. You can charge." I don't remember what the limit was. I could charge $20 now instead of $5 if I wanted to.
Cool.
So that's what I did at one point. I started to charge a little more, started to kind of see how maybe this could be something because there was so much demand, especially once I was at the top of the search results for Fiverr. There was just so much demand. People wanted me to set up all these crazy campaigns for businesses, and to the point I had to start screening them as they came in. Because they'd come to me with stuff that would just never work at all. Someone wanted me, they were starting a new social media, social networking site that was going to compete with Facebook.
Right. And
they wanted me to set up a Google ad campaign for this. And it's no, this is never going to work. You can go waste your time somewhere else trying to get this to work. I can at least tell you that Google Ads is never going to work for you to grow a social networking site to compete with Facebook.
Yeah.
Right. So stuff like that would be happening. And I was able to kind of screen and allow businesses to hire me who I knew it would be worthwhile to hire on Google search. Businesses where people are actually going to Google and searching for the business. Local businesses, some e-commerce and stuff like that. The kind of thing Google Ads is actually good for. So at some point now, probably about a month and a half in, starting to charge a little more. Someone who I had built the campaign for sent me a message and they said, well, now what? Can I pay you to manage this campaign for me? And I said, well, I didn't reply right away because I had to figure out what that meant. I had to figure out how to actually okay, this is a service apparently. Let me see what this looks like. So I started looking for Google Ads management companies. Figured out that there are companies who do this.
This is a real thing.
Yep, this is a thing. They have pricing of they charge X amount of dollars per month. And usually it's based on how much someone is spending on their Google Ads, and you would charge a percentage of that as a monthly fee. So I kind of pieced this together, figured out, okay, let me give this a go. I'll at least tell this person how much I'll charge them per month. And they wanted to spend, I think it was $1,000 a month was his ad budget. I said, great. Yep, I charge 10% of your ad budget. So it'll be $100 a month you can pay me to manage this. He hired me to do that. I thought it was the best thing ever because now I had someone who I didn't have to build new campaigns for him. I just kind of had to, manage the campaign, tweak the campaigns, and he was just going to keep paying me every month for this.
Reoccurring income, the dream.
Yep, the holy grail, which up to that time, I didn't really know anything about the agency world or running an agency. I had started to learn about marketing and advertising, but didn't know how to offer it as a service. So that was really how I got my start. Was someone had to hit me over the head and say, hey, can I give you money every month to do this for me? So I started to do that. Once I figured out that was a thing, now every time I completed a Fiverr gig for someone, I would say, hey, if you're interested in having me manage this for you, let me know. And it was a very kind of soft close. And on Fiverr, you weren't really allowed to take the business off of Fiverr.
Right.
So we had to, try to get into a conversation and try to get this off of Fiverr because Fiverr wasn't set up to take recurring payments from people. So I started to take PayPal payments, kept doing the Fiverr thing. The Fiverr gig kept growing through all of this. And to the point where I actually hired my first VA just to help me build these Fiverr campaigns.
So when you hired your first VA, so you tried Freelancer as well, correct?
Yeah. So sites like freelancer.com, or Upwork, I don't know what it's called anymore, but
I don't either. I think it's Upwork now.
Yeah. There are sites like this too. Yeah. You could go hire freelancers. So I posted myself on these sites also, offering Google Ads services. I never got any traction on any of those sites.
Really? It all was Fiverr?
More so on the freelancing sites, a business would post their needs. They would make a post, I need someone to build a Google Ads campaign for me. And then you had to send them a message.
Right.
And 50 other people were sending them a message. And it was just nothing I ever really was able to get any traction on.
Right.
Whereas Fiverr, I posted my services and then people found me.
Yeah.
And then because of the algorithm and I was getting nothing but 5-star reviews, I was just getting found on Fiverr. So as much as I wanted to diversify into these other freelancing sites at the start, it just wasn't working. So I just kind of doubled down on Fiverr.
Cool.
Yeah. So then hired a VA to help me. And it was actually someone who worked with me at the call center that I left. So I had moved to a different city by now. He was still back in the other city. So,
and sorry, are you still what's happening with the junk removal company at this point? So now you're starting a whole separate company.
Yep. At this point, junk removal company is still running. So I had actually, so the partner was still in the original city where I had gone to college. I had gone back to my hometown actually to start the second junk removal company. And I was only there for a few months to kind of get that off the ground, found a good team of a few people to work at that junk removal business. And then I moved again up to where I am now, to Grand Forks, North Dakota, because this is where like my family had grown up, my parents had grown up in this area. My sister had moved up here. So I just decided to kind of move up here to be closer to family. So I was up here. Junk removal businesses are still operating in the 2 other cities. I was up here starting to do this freelancing work. Yep. So then hired my first VA. He was, an American. You don't think of hiring a VA from the United States, but he was literally virtual to me. And he was coming from a $12 an hour call center job too. So, I was able to hire him and basically teach him how to build a Google ad campaign. Because I had kind of developed this structure where I would build 4 ad groups, and each ad group would have 2 ads, and then they'd have this set of 10 to 20 keywords kind of built around a theme. So this was easy enough for me to teach and kind of oversee it. So he was basically managing all the Fiverr stuff, which was bringing in a few $1,000s a month just on Fiverr.
Wow.
I think the base gig was like $20, but then you could have these add-ons also.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what the add-ons were, but more ads or more keywords or
right.
I'd have these add-ons and made like a cheat sheet of like how to manage the campaign.
Yeah.
Because people were still asking me, well, what do I do now? And they didn't want to hire me because they had just paid $20 for an ad campaign. They didn't want to have to pay hundreds a month.
Yeah.
So I made a cheat sheet of like, okay, here's what to do now that this campaign is built. Like these are the things you should do daily and weekly to keep this campaign going and make sure you're not losing a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. So I built that cheat sheet, and that was kind of included with all of my deliveries. And then within that cheat sheet was like how to hire me if you want to do that.
Right.
So I was doing that, was doing pretty well. Just with the Fiverr revenue, basically paying for the VA and then some. And then I was getting business on the back of that, where I was starting to have companies hire me to manage their campaigns. That original VA didn't really work out. He was a little too entrepreneurial. So he wanted to like get a piece of this and kind of wanted to partner up. And at that point, there wasn't really much to partner up on, and I didn't really want to partner. I just kind of wanted to do my thing and just pay someone else to do part of it. It's
also probably expensive, right? Being an American VA.
It was more expensive. So then the next VA I hired, who was someone from the Philippines, and I hired him. He had Google Ads experience. The first guy didn't have any Google Ads experience. I had to teach him everything. The second guy that I hired from the Philippines, he had Google Ads experience. He didn't really have the experience needed to communicate with all the people on Fiverr. So I kind of went back to doing that. But now he was able to build and manage all of these Google Ads campaigns. And, I don't remember what I paid him, but it was a great salary for him for living in the Philippines. He's actually still working for me today.
Yep. He's part of the LZ team.
12 years later, almost 12 years later.
12 years and 3 companies later.
Yeah. He's followed me to different companies. Because the first company I ended up selling, he stayed there for a while. Eventually, he's now come to work for me at the current company we're running. So I just think that's really cool that he's like still working for me and
still building ad campaigns.
Still building ad campaigns. Mm-hmm. He's grown his own family, and hopefully I'll get to meet him in person someday. I've actually never met him in person. That was the first step of like hiring a VA, which I believe you're still a freelancer. as long as you're paying people to replicate your own work, you're a freelancer. So I was still a freelancer for quite a while, and we'll keep going through this story. But just because I hired someone doesn't mean now I had an agency.
Yeah.
Of course, when I'm getting people to pay me to manage their ads, it's an agency.
Yes.
I'm getting them to hire an agency, but really it's me and like one other guy.
That's what the sign above the door says. But yeah.
So starting to get clients, charging like no money, right? So $100 a month for a client.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think of that and about the fact that like that really wasn't any money. And I even had clients, because I came up with this pricing scale based on what all these other agencies were doing, where it was basically like 10% of ad spend. And if they were spending more on ads, then it would be a lower percentage. So it would be like 9% of ad spend. Or if you're spending $10,000 a month, then it would be 7% of ad spend or something like that.
Yeah.
And because of where these clients were coming from, like I never had a client spending $10,000 a month. Because someone spending that much on their marketing isn't trying to hire someone on Fiverr to build a campaign.
Right. They're going to an agency.
And they're starting a little above that. So I just had these crazy clients that I was working for. I don't even remember like hardly any of them, but I know there were clients spending $300 a month on their ads.
And you were charging them literally $30 at the time?
Literally $30. $30 a month to pay me.
You had no minimum, like no $200 minimum or anything.
Not right away. It was the $30 a month client that at least got me to start a minimum, which I think my first minimum was $100 a month. Because it is true. Like there's memes out there talking about like a $5,000 a month client versus a $500 a month client, and how basically the $5,000 a month client, you never hear from them. And the $500 a month client is blowing up your phone all day because they're freaking out because nothing's going right. Well, imagine apply that to a $30 a month client. Once I realized that I was making less than $12 an hour managing someone's campaign, I realized, okay, I really need to set some standards. So I didn't raise the standards quickly enough, but at least I started to raise the standards.
Yeah.
So I think at one point my minimum was $100 a month. I know the first time that someone paid me $480 a month was like, I vividly remember I was still taking payments with PayPal. I was in my now wife's house. So I had started dating a girlfriend who's my wife now. I was in her house, and I guess this customer was going to be spending $6,000 a month on ads, and I was charging them 8% of that. So it was like $480 a month. And I couldn't tell you what they did. I really don't remember what they did, but I would remember the payment coming through PayPal for $480, and I was like in the hallway of her house. I remember it that vividly, and was like freaking out that I had made all of this money, because I was making a few $1,000s a month at this point. Most of that was going to a VA. I really wasn't making that much money.
And it was all through all these small gigs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was all this small nickel and dime stuff. So this $480 payment was like crazy to me. And told my wife, I was like, look at this. Someone just paid me $480. And again, she wasn't my wife at the time. She's like, oh, is that a lot?
Is that good?
Is that good? I don't know. I was like, yeah, like this is amazing. She's like, oh, congratulations, babe. And yeah, that was kind of like a turning point for me of like, okay, there are people out there who can pay me more than $100 or $150 a month for this service. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was getting better and better at it, and just had more confidence that if someone hired me, that I was going to be doing a good job managing their account. So things kind of, slowly scaled up from there. I remember at the end of that first year, somehow I landed a client who was spending like way more money. Like they were spending, I don't remember what, but I remember they were paying me $4,000 a month.
And do you remember if it came through Fiverr?
It must have came through Fiverr because I wasn't getting clients anywhere else. God, I wish I remember what they were doing. I just don't even, this is all just a blur to me at this point. But I remember they were spending so much that they were paying me $4,000 a month. But they didn't want to pay me $4,000 a month. They wanted to pay me weekly. So they wanted to pay me $1,000 a week.
They wanted to have a ripcord.
Yeah. It was kind of a startup, and they didn't have a lot of stability in their business either, which I think is why they wanted to just pay me weekly. Mm-hmm. So they started to pay me weekly for a few weeks. I was getting $1,000 a week. Wow. This is now very crazy. It only lasted a few months, unfortunately. And I don't remember the circumstances. I think their campaigns were fairly successful, but their business, I think they actually took it in-house. They took their Google ads in-house.
Yeah.
They realized they could probably afford someone for less than $4,000 a month who could just do this for them full-time, was the story there.
And it's also interesting too, any agency owner who's listening to this knows, right? When you're the marketing agency, and we don't get too much into this in the podcast, but I think it's worth noting, you're the help and you're treated as the help, and you're kind of, your business is so contingent on their business being well operated. And so, when you're doing leads for a business, you have to hope that business knows what to do with those leads. You have to hope that business has a good product and can fulfill for the customers they do close. And all those things are really what determine the success of an ad campaign. And it is a hard spot to be in. So a little bit of a tangent here, and only because I know we're not covering it later, but I think it is important to understand and illustrate that as an agency, you are at the mercy of how good your clients are at what they do.
Absolutely. And I've had clients get mad at me for generating them so many leads. Mm-hmm. Because they spent so much money. Meanwhile, they have all these leads sitting there. They don't have a clue what to do with them.
Yep.
And all they can think of is how they've wasted all this money. Well, it's wasted because they had no idea what to do with the leads once they got them.
Yeah.
So that happens, right? People just don't know what to do. So that's why obviously it's great if you can work for established companies, mm-hmm. if you can work for businesses that know how to handle leads. But as a freelancer, that's not always possible. As a freelancer, you're taking what you can get, mm-hmm. and doing the best. You're doing the best you have with what you have.
Yeah.
So that was nice. That was a nice taste. Getting that $4,000 a month from that one client, getting another few thousand a month from other clients and from Fiverr. And very early on, I had the goal that most people start out with of getting to $10,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
The elusive 10K goal.
Yep. You're still operating junk removal.
We had gone through another spring and summer, and mm-hmm. it was getting to be fall. And I realized I wanted out of the junk removal business.
And was it because you were more inspired with this stuff, or
yes.
was it junk? Yeah.
More inspired. The junk removal business was basically paying the wages of the people who were working for it.
Right.
Since I wasn't doing any of the work, I wasn't making any money from the junk removal business. Yep. So, and it was a distraction, and I was managing it from afar and wondering, what the heck am I going to do if these employees quit? And
mm-hmm. It was unnecessary stress, and you had something that was scaling on the side.
Yeah, had something that was starting to scale. that I loved doing, and loved learning about, because still now I'm learning about marketing. And I think that's what's so awesome about this business is I can always be learning something and then applying it. And so it was just having so much fun. And then once I realized that I can actually make a living with this, and either way, I wasn't making a living with the junk removal businesses. So yeah, I closed down the second business. Had the employee meet me halfway so I could get the truck from him, and then I could sell the truck up here. And my partner, he kept running that office where we had originally started for like another year, I think. But then he ended up closing that down. Because it was a living, but that's what it was. Yeah. It was a living for whoever's doing the junk removal. It didn't ever go any farther than that.
Yep.
So yeah, by this time, I had closed down the junk removal business. We still had the one branch that my partner was running, but I wasn't involved at all. I had closed down the second branch that I had kind of been running. Yeah, I don't remember what I earned that month with the big $4,000 a month client for those couple months. I think it was bordering on like $7,000 or $8,000 a month gross.
Right.
I still had VA that I was paying, wasn't pocketing a whole lot. When that ended, now I'm back to making $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And it was still a struggle for a while. I had a pretty good gig at one point doing ads for an agency. So I was basically white labeling. So he had all these clients in the home services industry. So ads for like window installation companies and roofing companies and stuff like that. So I was running 20 or 30 ad campaigns for 30 different companies.
Right.
He was paying me maybe $100 per company.
Really?
Because I was charging him a percentage, right? And it was on the whole. So some companies, maybe it was $50 a month.
Right.
Some of them were maybe a few $100s a month. But on average, yeah, he was, I think, paying me a few $1,000s a month to manage these 30 campaigns. Meanwhile, him as a salesperson and actually running an agency, he's charging these businesses thousands of dollars a month to manage their campaigns.
Yep.
So the arbitrage he had from charging these businesses thousands a month, paying me hundreds a month, I started to see the real benefit to like, okay, if I can get better at sales and like finding these big businesses with bigger ad budgets, I can make a lot more than $100 a month running their campaigns. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that kind of was the business for a while, is getting customers off of Fiverr, starting to get some customers from word of mouth.
Yep.
I was trying to get customers off of Facebook groups. So this was the Facebook groups were just kind of starting to become a thing.
Right.
This was like 2014, 2015. And there were some bigger like marketing groups that I was in, and I was looking for a group on Google AdWords because I thought, I could join this group on Google AdWords and then I would get all of these clients if I was in this group offering my Google AdWords services. Well, luckily, like that group didn't exist because I think I would have just totally bombed in that group, and like
you would have just spammed it hoping that there's business owners looking for it when really it's just a bunch of freelancers hoping that there's business owners there. Yeah,
it just wouldn't have gone well. So I ended up starting my own group. I started a Google AdWords group. The name of it was Google AdWords Hackers, which I think is still in the URL of the group to this day. It's like Facebook/Google AdWords Hackers.
That's so funny. I expected it to be more like a Dan Kennedy, like the no BS guide to Google AdWords.
Was wondering how to get people into the group. Mm-hmm. Tried to talk to some I think I tried to hire some people on Freelancer to like grow the group. And they were like, yeah, you just need to friend request a bunch of people and then you just invite all your friends into the group. It's like, well, that doesn't sound very cool. So let's, what I actually did was I ran Facebook ads to the group. Mm-hmm. And it took off. Like there was an appetite for just Facebook groups in general at the time.
Right.
There was an appetite for Google ads at the time. So when I just had this simple ad that people would click on it and they could join the group, I had hundreds of people joining the group. It was like $1 per group member.
You imagine get that now?
Yeah.
I'd drop $1 million today.
That'd be fun.
Right?
Yeah. So I had all these people joining the group. And then because it was growing so fast, it started to grow organically. I was managing it myself, so it was very clean. There was no spam in it. People were loving this group. Because I ran the group, I was seen as this authority on Google AdWords, which is interesting. Even with all of that going for me, I was not getting any clients out of that group. Yeah. Not even out of my own group could I get Google ad clients.
Yeah. So you still hadn't broke the 10K mark a month.
Yeah. Yeah. Still hadn't broke 10K a month. And like you said, most of the people in the group were other people doing Google ads. Mm-hmm. There weren't a lot of business owners in the group. There were some. But yeah, it was very hard to get clients out of that group, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I understand now why. Like it just wasn't the right place to kind of cultivate a client relationship.
Well, it would have been different too if the premise of the group is different. Like if you made a group that was like marketing hacks for local business owners and grew that group and you filled it with high quality content and your cheat sheets and stuff like that, I'm sure maybe that would do well in retrospect, right? Because any group now that's like about AdWords is literally full of the funnel hackers and agency owners.
Yeah. It was Fiverr and word of mouth. And I finally cracked the $10,000 a month barrier. Mm-hmm. It took 2.5 years.
Yeah. And you cracked it and never went back down below, right?
No, never. Just scaled to the moon.
And this was still just all Google ads?
Yeah. It was me doing Google ads for anyone who wanted them, who I thought should be on Google ads.
Yep.
I still had these crazy businesses coming to me. Like one of them was like they were selling waterproof socks where like you could put them on your feet when you went swimming so your feet wouldn't get wet.
Hey, now in the ultra running world, those would probably do really well.
I don't know. I don't even know why these were invented or like how they help people. But I knew there wasn't anyone on Google searching for them.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where, at least I had enough business coming and I could just turn away stuff that I just knew I couldn't help.
Yeah.
And I was running ads for people who I at least could help. Got to 10,000 a month, just couldn't stay there. It took me 4 years because I looked back before we recorded this, went back on the monthly revenue from the business. It took me 4 years to finally get to $10,000 a month and not drop below it ever again.
So it took you 2.5 years for your first 10K month and then another 1.5 years to stabilize above 10K.
Yeah.
I was going to say it sounds like the typical journey of a freelancer, but it's not. Like this is when freelancers dream of it, most of them never get to the breaking the 10K, let alone to the maintaining. And so to hear that it took you 4 years, I think a lot of people need to hear that is the time it will take if you're going to sit here and spend your time learning it and going through the process you did, which was absorb it all and do it all on your own. You did all this without any courses, without any masterminds, without, Hormozy's 300 videos a day teaching you marketing for free right now on Instagram or whatever it is. What an interesting time frame, and what a humbling time frame I think a lot of people should take from this.
Obviously, I know there's people who They buy a course on how to start an agency. They go out and they get 5 chiropractors, clients who pay them $2,000 a month, and they get to $10,000 a month within
60 days.
Yeah.
Yep.
That happens. I know people who have done that. That was not my path at all. Now, once I got to $10,000 a month, and I fairly quickly got to $20,000 and $30,000 a month. And I did that by actually graduating from freelancer to agency.
Yeah.
Which means I was hiring some more people, some higher level people who could take things off of my plate. The first significant hire that I had basically was doing my customer or client support for me.
Right. So again, you trying to insulate yourself from clients and just wanting to work on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that hire, I would say is really when I went from freelancer to agency. So once I had someone else dealing with all of the client communication for me, and I had myself and I had the media buyer who I had hired from the Philippines, and I had a couple other VAs doing things in different types of things. In my opinion, that's kind of where I became an agency.
You also broke out from Google Ads at that point too, right? You evolved your agency offer.
Yes, I had started to evolve the offer where I had started to niche down, got into doing YouTube ads, for a specific industry. That's what crossed me over from freelancer to agency. That's how I was able to finally stay above $10,000 a month revenue. And we'll get into that in future shows. So that's basically where my freelancing journey ends here, is me getting to $10,000 per month in revenue and maybe taking home a few $1,000s a month. Right.
Right.
I was not making any money still.
Yeah. Revenue and take home are two very different things.
Yeah. So do you have any other questions about me as a freelancer?
No, I think that sums it up. I was going to ask you about your first 10K check, but I think we're doing that in a future episode. Okay.
So let's transition to your journey as a freelancer.
It was interesting listening to you talk about, I'd never heard about the pizza story in high school, and how entrepreneurial you were at a younger age. I wish I could say the same, but I was not. In high school, money was a big thing for me, but working was a big thing. So both my parents are entrepreneurs. My mother ran a daycare out of her house. My father owned an auto body shop around the corner from our house. So that's all I knew. But it's not like I knew a lot about business. It's not like they were had huge business acumen. They were just really hard workers. They just worked a lot. There was always kids at our house. My mom was always looking after kids. My dad would come home at 5 and have supper and a nap and be back to the shop for 7 to do last coats of paint. So for me in high school, I had 2 jobs and I just worked. I worked at Subway on the weekends and I worked at a grocery store kind of throughout the week cutting meat. But I was a guy with a car. The high school was 30 minutes, in a different town from me, 30 minutes away. So I was all just kind of about rallying everybody up and doing stuff. I was always really good at kind of getting groups of people together, played guitar, played in a band, played football, was captain of the football team. Just kind of liked being that guy. Just kind of liked being the guy out front. So yeah, I wish I could say that I was born with this entrepreneurial spirit, but I wasn't. And it wasn't until graduating high school, I turned down an opportunity to go to a couple of universities because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I thought it'd just be this huge waste of money to go into it. I hated school. I hated school. I did well. My grades were good, but I just hated it. All I wanted to do was socialize. That was it. So my friends all went to the university that was just over an hour away from my hometown. And I went and got my meat cutting degree. And so I thought I was so cool. I was 18.
And how long does it take to get a meat cutting degree?
Right? So it's a trade. It's a trade license, like an electrician or something like that. It's called retail meat cutter. It's 4,000 hours and then 4 months of schooling. So by the time I had gotten a couple of credits early in high school. I challenged a couple of courses. So by grade 12, I had like 3 spares. And so in my spares, I did co-op, which means I just worked at the grocery store. And so I got paid while I was working, but then those hours also counted towards an apprenticeship. So by the time I graduated high school, I had my 4,000 hours for retail meat cutter, which was why I decided to do it. Actually, it wasn't 4 months. It was because I only had to go to another town for 3 months and do the course. And when I was done the 3 months, I would have my ticket. So it was basically the only reason I did it was because I was already done it when I found out about it. I already had the in-shop hours. So I went to Cornwall, Ontario to do my 3 months of schooling. Turns out that the schooling was supposed to be done before the hours. So when I walked in there, it was like literally them teaching you like how to hold a knife and stuff like that. So I went to the dean of the school and was just like, I've been doing this for like 4 years. And he was just like, just show up on Fridays to write the tests then. And so for those 3 months, I only showed up every Friday for 2 hours to write a test and just hung out and partied in Cornwall. It was great.
And you were 18?
18.
Okay.
Yep. I turned 19 while I was in Cornwall. No, I turned 18 while I was in Cornwall because Cornwall was on the border of Quebec and the drinking age in Quebec is 18. It's 19 in Ontario. So I turned 18 while I was there and all the guys took me over the border to Quebec for my 18th birthday to a bar.
Okay.
A certain kind of bar. And
I didn't realize you were so young when you were starting the meat cutting.
Yeah, I just done it all through high school. Mm-hmm. It's all I kind of knew. And so then I came home. I was getting paid well. So
do you remember like how you first got this job in high school?
Yeah, literally just applied to the grocery store to work. They had an opening in the meat department. So I was like literally, I'd go to school. School ended at 3:30, take the bus from Halliburton to Minden, which was 30 minutes. So I'd be at the grocery store by 4, which is when the meat cutters stopped. And my job was to clean the meat cutting room from 4 and like fill the shelves until 8 at night.
So that chance opening at the grocery store determined the next several years of your life.
And prior to that, I worked at an ice cream store and I was getting paid $6.25. And when I applied at the grocery store, they offered me $6.25 and I told them I couldn't do it because I was getting that at the ice cream shop and couldn't quit. And so I remember Mike, I'm not going to say his last name, looking at me and going, you know what, Drew, we'll give you $6.35. And now I can look back and see how hilarious that was. But I thought I was like, oh my God, like I negotiated a salary. Like it was so funny. But I think I was maybe 14 at the time, 15 at the time when that happened. Like I was young. Mm-hmm. Chance, just complete chance, mopping up back room of a meat department. And then the grade 11, summer of grade 11, they were down a meat cutter and I was working like full time throughout the summer and the manager was like, well, we'll just teach Drew how to do it. He's here every day anyways. It'd be nice for him to know because then during school, if people want stuff cut at night when he's in here cleaning, he can like cut them a steak or whatever.
Yeah.
So just complete random. So I came back. My friends all went to university, a little over an hour away from the hometown. I was still working in the hometown of that grocery store. And I was the joke was I was getting paid what my age was. So I was 18, getting paid $18 an hour. And then when I was 19, I went to Mike and told Mike that I get paid what my age is. And he gave me the raise to $19. So it was funny. But it was a lot at the time. It was a good amount of money. So I would work. And then on the weekends, I would end up going to Peterborough, where the university was, and hang out with all my friends. And I would have spare cash in my pocket. I was living at home. And it was fun.
Sorry, finish that thought.
Oh, and then I ended up leaving and working in Peterborough and living in their common room couch for 2 years while they were in university, which was a lot of fun too. But it was easy because I had a meat cutting degree, so I could just like get a job anytime I wanted at a grocery store because they were very high in demand.
So how did you get into marketing?
Yes.
Or business? Where was your start?
Well, like outside of grocery stores, a little different. Like inside the grocery store, it really just happened that I got picked up by, I started working at a chain. I followed a girl to Ottawa and I really hated the meat manager in this grocery store I was at. And so I was like in the department one day and the other butcher was there and he was so upset. Like he was almost crying because this girl was just like awful. Like she was just kind of a tyrant and she would come in and just kind of like lecture everybody and leave. And Dave just looked at me and was like, I would just rather work for you. And I'm just like, all right, well, I guess I'll just take her job. And at that point in my life, I had never thought about being entrepreneurial. I never thought about being a manager, never thought about being a leader, none of this kind of stuff. All I thought I was making cash and like going and partying on the weekends with my friends. And I was over 20 at this age, I believe. But yeah, so I went home. I remember I bought the book, The Leader Who Has No Title by Robin Sharma. And I read the book cover to cover, like in a weekend, and was like super inspired and was like, I want to lead people. Like, this is my calling. I want to be a manager or leader or something.
Had you like, even just reading a book like that isn't a normal thing for someone to do who has a job. Like, had you been a reader up to then? Had you read other books?
I think it was probably the second book I'd ever read in my entire life. I remember even in grade 12 for the book assignment, getting caught plagiarizing my girlfriend. I was not a reader, but I was worked up. I was frustrated at that time and didn't like the girl. And I don't know, the book just kind of took me. And now I read. But yeah, the book was, I guess it's a little more serendipitous than I take granted for. Yeah, that is interesting. Because I then went on, I've read in that year, probably read all of Robin Sharma's books that he had out at that time. Within like 60 days, I had her job. And it turns out that her job was numbers and all procurement. And it was all, the grocery store I worked at did daily deliveries. And so if you think about a meat department, there's actually like 200 or 300 SKUs in a meat department. And if you get a delivery every day of every SKU, you have to be able to forecast what you're going to sell in one day. And forecast starts with like how much you're going to sell in a day, but then how that breaks down as a percentage to each product. And the company was kind of a startup. There was 11, not startup, but they only had 11 stores at the time. So they're still developing their system. And I just got really into it. Like, I really enjoyed the numbers. I was really savvy with math kind of my whole life. My brother's a PhD in pure mathematics. It's just kind of, math is a big thing in our household. So I took to it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I did really well with it. And I ended up in the grocery store graduating from meat cutter to meat specialist when we opened up a new district to a store manager, kind of all off the back of me enjoying leadership and really enjoying leading people, and then having this like kind of fixation on the math and the numbers behind things. And then as a store manager, I kind of got caught by the ads, right? The online ads. Affiliate marketing was probably my first like thing that grabbed me. This idea that you could run ads, sell somebody else's product, and basically get a commission off of it. And so long as that commission was greater than what you spent on the ads, everything was Gucci.
So you were just like on Facebook or whatever, just minding your own business.
Yep.
And then some evil advertiser
100%
shows you an ad.
Yep.
On how you can make money with affiliate marketing.
Yep. And that's when like the gears started turning. That's when like Warrior Forum, I started like found out about that and started researching that. And really to me, it just really broke down to like the first thing that I was shown was Google Ads, like you. And to me, it was just procurement. It was like make your SKUs, which is your keywords, run traffic, see which SKU gets the most volume and like what the return on that SKU would be. I'm like mixing grocery terms with Google ad terms here. But to me, it was just like, I just saw it and I was just like, this makes sense. And this is so sexy. So naturally I made tons of money really quickly.
So how long until you made your first million as an affiliate marketer?
Right? Yeah. It was so easy. It was just flip the switch and go. I ended up, I think the first one started first. I found this affiliate marketer and I followed a lot of his content. I was on his email list. I was like really bought into it. I'd still not run a single profitable campaign myself. I probably spent a few $1,000s on ads just to lose all my money to go like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I was just really intrigued by it, the simplicity of it and how you can make money and all through like math and these ad systems. And yeah, I ended up signing up for a program for a guy. It was like a one-on-one coaching thing. And basically the claim was he was running an affiliate marketing like insurance offer on Google Display Network. And he was making $100,000 a month off of it. And so for $10,000, low price of $10,000, you get one-on-one coaching with him and he would help you replicate his exact campaign and get it profitable. And I was like, well, this is perfect. Like, in my mind, like, I don't know much about ads and stuff at this point, but it's just like, yeah, I guess if I had the same ad, the same keyword on the same platforms at the same landing page, why wouldn't it just do the exact same amount of revenue that he was doing?
Do you remember how old you were?
28 maybe?
28. So you had been doing the meat cutting thing for like a decade?
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because I opened stores with there was a lot going on.
Okay.
And I guess I probably and to be fair, I've been intrigued by this marketing for years and years and years. Like, I spent a lot of time looking at courses and like not taking action, as most people do. And then, so I did this one-on-one coaching. Turns out the guy's a total fraud. It doesn't really matter even if you could replicate a campaign. The integrity, of course, being, does he actually have a campaign, was a question I never asked and asked for proof of. And so after paying him the $10,000, it turns out that he would take that $10,000 and try and make a campaign with you. Well, he would pocket it and then ask you to spend more ad spend to fund and try and figure out a campaign. Turns out the guy was a complete scam. After I got very, very frustrated with it for months and months and months, and him basically ghosting me, finding out that he was doing the same with multiple other people. There was actually a news article popped up where he lived in DC, Washington, about him scamming people out of money, and the local news station it went and interviewed him and stuff like that. So I was pretty quickly disenchanted with affiliate marketing at the time, but I knew the whole system was like, I understood that Facebook ads and Google ads and everything did stuff. And again, that Warrior Forum post about just find a local business and use their money to learn really spoke to me at the time. And there was a course that, again, I got served. It was a $1,500 course, and it was how to run Facebook ads for local businesses. And so I'd read that Warrior Forum post. Somehow I got served this ad very, very shortly after for this course of how to actually do it. So it was about how to find local businesses, how to run ads for them, and how to make funnels for them. So I got that course. I thought it was really, really interesting. I then also bought another course about basically how to run ads for people through the lens of being a consultant. Most people might be able to pick up what that course was. And then I was at the grocery store and I realized I had these courses. I had all this passion. I wanted to do it, but I was working 60, 70 hours a week. And I was drinking a lot because that's what you did in the industry. And I just never had time to take action on anything. And I was really, really, really unhappy as a store manager at this grocery chain. And I was living with my now wife, and she had a full-time job and we were making good money. And I was like, I'm just going to do this. If I can spend 60 hours a week working for this company for whatever I was making at the time, I was making 6 figures. If I invested that many hours into this, my own thing, how could I not be successful? It's silly. I was running $1 million a month grocery store. It was doing, it was $1 million every 4 weeks. It was 13 periods in a year, the way we tracked. So I was doing $13 million a year. I was managing 100 people. At one point I had 600 people working for me. How could I, of all people, not be successful doing this? If the success rate of the business is 50%, I would assume I'm in at least the top 50 percentile, having all of this experience running a grocery store. So I literally was sitting at my desk one day and it was 1 p.m. and I picked up the phone and I called my boss and I was just I quit. He's just who is this? And I was it's Drew. He's actually? He had no idea. There was no precursor it was going to happen. It's not I was letting the store fall apart. It was just I was just done. I just hit this moment of crisis in my life where I just needed to do something more. And I think the drinking had a lot to do with it too. I just needed to change. And my girl, we were married at the time. We had been trying to have a kid for 2 years or 3 years at that point, and we couldn't. And so I thought my stress and all this other stuff had to do with it, and I felt I was laying her down, so I just quit.
Did you have a financial cushion when you quit?
So what did help with me quitting was knowing that I get a $30,000 payout. So I had $30,000 kind of in the joint investment through the company. The company did matching investments. And so after 10 years, you were entitled to all of the matchings. Like
a retirement plan?
Kind of, yeah. Okay. Kind of like what a 401k would be for you guys.
Okay.
But I'd hit my 10-year mark. I'd already passed it and I just found this out. And so I knew if I left, I'd get $30,000. So that definitely helped knowing I had a cushion. So yeah, went in the afternoon, drove home. As I was pulling into the driveway, my wife's car was in the driveway, which was not normal because she should have been at work. And so naturally I thought she was having an affair. And so came bursting through the door going, "What are you doing?" And she was sitting there on the couch crying. And she's like, "What are you doing? Are you having an affair?" It was just so funny. That's the first thing that popped in both of our minds. And I was like, no, I just quit my job. And she's just like, "You just what?" I'm like, "I just quit my job." Like,
she's like, "Oh, maybe the affair would have been better."
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I'm like, "What are you doing home?" She's like, "I just had a doctor's appointment and I'm pregnant." And it was just like, oh shit. So I had a lot of pressure at that very moment to make things happen. Which didn't really happen. Didn't really work out very well for me. So I spent the next few months basically going through his courses. I did a lot of outreach, a lot of trying to get clients. I was not confident in being able to run ads because I hadn't run ads. All I'd done is really fuck up that affiliate thing. So because I didn't have a lot of confidence in running ads, I didn't have a lot of confidence in selling my services to other people. I didn't do Fiverr or anything like that. I was doing cold outreach. Actually, I had a really brilliant thing. I had taken a lot of courses at the time in hypnotherapy and change work and life coaching. It was something I was really interested in. I knew that they all sucked at marketing. So I was like, I could just run ads for these people. And I had in the one course that I bought, there was a funnel for a hypnotherapist. And I was just like, I can use this funnel. The course shows me how to run the ads. I'm going to do it for these people. So what I would do is I'd look up hypnotherapist in Denver and get all of the top results. I would screenshot their homepage, paste on Canva a YouTube play button on it, and then put it in an email and be like, "Hey, so-and-so hypnotherapist, I was taking a look at your website. I saw a few things that could definitely help improve, get you some clients. I hope this helps," and just send it to them. And then anybody who would respond with "Oh, the video is not working," I would actually then go make the video for them. So I thought it was really, really cool.
Yeah. Everybody wants to hear what's wrong with their website.
Yep. People did respond. I got the odd response. But turns out hypnotherapists are broke and can't afford marketing. So that didn't work out very well. I ended up finally through LinkedIn outreach, getting a hold of somebody who ran a chimney sweep company. He had a chimney sweep, a pest control, and a lawn aeration company.
Do you remember how you had targeted this person through LinkedIn outreach?
I think because I was going industry by industry, right? So it was I first tried chiropractors and then dentists and then the hypnotherapists. And now I was on pest control. It was just I'm just going down the list of what the course tells you to do and half-ass executing, not doing it properly. I was emotional, doing everything that was going on. I was not making money. I had actually spent another $10,000 on consulting with somebody for another affiliate thing that ended up being a complete shit show as well. It was exactly 9 months later and I'd had my $30,000 payout. I had gone through all of that. I'd burnt through all of that. I was then $30,000 in credit card debt. And I had this lead. I had this guy and I talked to him a few times, this pest control chimney sweep company guy, but I hadn't closed him or locked him down on anything yet. And he wanted kind of everything. But then Daniela went to labor and I remember freaking out and she had just had Sophia. Sophia had to go to the NICU. She had some complications when she was first born. And I was sitting there in the NICU waiting room. Well, Daniela was on pain meds from her C-section and Soph was in NICU and I was on the phone with 911 services for Toronto doing a phone interview because I didn't know what else to do. I'd spent through every dollar I ever had. And yeah, just going through that process and being really emotional. And I got an email from Frank and he was the pest control guy. And his email was, "I'll pay you $3,000 a month if you do SEO for all three of my sites, Facebook ads for all three of my sites, Google reviews for all of my sites, and something else." So
had you talked to him about pricing?
We had extensively. And that's what the whole back and forth was because he had so many different companies and so many different needs. And he was kind of educated. He'd been through the ClickFunnels webinars and so he knew what funnels were. So he thought he was savvy and I thought I was savvy. And it was awkward and long, and he's like he's an entrepreneur, so he's hard to tie down. So it's like we have a conversation and then it's 4 weeks later before he responds to my 18 text messages to get back to me because he got busy with something else. So yeah, and then and I sent him a pay funnels link because that was how at the time I was using Stripe, and he paid.
So this was your first client?
First client was Frank. Yeah. Oh no, I might have that backwards. Just before that, I had signed up a THC doctor in Ontario for a Google Ads review for $275. But it was just prior to that, and that was $275 a month. Yeah.
Okay, so small Google Ad review client.
Yep.
$275 a month. Then Frank comes in. $3,000 a month, basically hiring you at this point.
Basically, and $3K USD was like $4,500 a month for me, which is like $50K a year, which is about half of what I was making in the grocery store. But it was like, I can now pay fucking rent, which is great because we were in crisis. And Danny was going on mat leave, right? Like she was having a baby in Canada. You take a year off and get paid 50% of your salary. And so like she was getting her salary cut in half. I'd lost my salary and was $30K in debt. But now, and only making like this $275 a month from this doctor. So now it's like I can pay rent. And it was really, really exciting. So
do you remember how much time you were putting in on Frank's stuff?
It was all day, every day. So the moment Frank paid, he called me, I would say literally every day after that. We were best of buddies. He had everything to say about every ad and every funnel and every idea. I was basically a CMO. If he wanted website changes done, they were done. If he wanted to hire this terrible person to do Google Ads reviews, I would manage them. Everybody on his team had my cell phone number. So if they didn't like the leads, they were his office manager would call me saying the leads were shit this day. It was a lot.
Didn't you say you were like out of the country when you had your sales call with?
Yeah, my initial sales call with Frank was we were in Croatia, and that was while Daniela was pregnant. And I remember, it was because there was a big time zone change, and being up like in the wee hours of the morning, FaceTiming Frank, having my initial sales call with him.
And you were just like on vacation?
Yeah. Well, vacation. I was unemployed, so.
You're on a trip.
I was on a trip, yeah. So this would be COVID hitting. And so there was like this really interesting payroll tax benefit for Canadians because Canada's just finding ways to throw money at everybody during COVID. And so it was something like if you had like over 50K in payroll in the year prior, they would just give you 10 grand. I think it was called SEBA or something. But like nobody really knew about it. It was really weird. It was just kind of like rolled out overnight and they didn't like advertise it very well. It wasn't even on the news. But yeah, during some of my outreach, at one point I was reaching out to accountants, and just out of nowhere, I got this message on LinkedIn from an accountant in Alberta. And he was just like, can you help me write some ads? I've been like really successful helping people get this 10K SEBA. Basically all I need to do is submit a form on the government website proving they had 50K in payroll last year and they get 10 grand. So I'm charging them like 2 grand to submit this form. He's like, so I don't even care if it costs you $1,500 to get me a client. I need as many as possible and I can process 25 a day. And so that was just like really quick out of nowhere. I charged him $1,500 a month. I ran those ads really successfully. He got a lot of clients until SEBA was shut down. But yeah, I really scaled his company for him. But that was, I think I had him, Andrew, for maybe 6 months, 3 to 6 months anyways, at the $1,500. But I think that was the time. So it'd taken me a year at that point to get to that. And I was still stressed. And if Frank left, I would have been screwed. And what I didn't understand was client acquisition. What I didn't understand was client fulfillment. What I didn't understand was client communication. And so I think at this point is when I was like, I'm going to go apply to agencies. Like I'm going to get a job at an agency. I've got a few clients, so I'm making some money. I'll get a job. I don't really care what I get paid, but what it's going to teach me is how are they getting clients? How are they fulfilling on clients? How are they communicating with clients? And I'm going to steal all their SOPs and just go start my own company.
And that's exactly what you did.
That's exactly what I did. I reached out, got a job at one agency for a little while. And then I was on your email list because in my hunt at the time for courses and stuff, Your course had somehow come up and I somehow was on your email list. I'm not even sure how, to be honest. And so I was working at this other agency. It was a shit show. It was some dude who had no idea what he was doing, but had a few high paying clients. So hired some people. He didn't have a clue. He had no process for anything. He didn't even know how he was getting clients. And then, you sent it an email looking for media buyers. And I was like, this is perfect. If there's anything I can do is the analytical back end. And plus this guy's got to have SOPs I can steal. So,
and man, were you disappointed?
Damn, yeah.
No SOPs.
Not a one. But I stole your whole process and started a whole new company.
So jumping ahead a little in my story. So I had hired this client support person, and now I had an agency. Mm-hmm. It wasn't for like another year when I realized okay, I shouldn't be doing the media buying anymore either. Like I shouldn't be running ads for clients. If I really want a company here, I need to hire people for this. So that's when I put out the call, and I had kind of dabbled, like you mentioned, and I had a course on Google Ads, and I had dabbled in some other stuff like that. So I had built up an email list, and I was able to send out an email saying, hey, I'm hiring media buyers. And that's where you applied. And I actually hired 3 media buyers at that time, all at once. I hired 3 people to replace me, just because I'm that awesome.
Yeah.
I needed 3 people. But no, we were growing and needed more people. I wanted to go on to more client acquisition stuff and making more content. So hired you and another media buyer, and then like another junior media buyer. And I remember I didn't have much money to offer someone. During this process, I had talked to some people, and it was always me kind of asking, like, what are you looking to get paid?
Yeah.
I always wanted the other person to lay down their cards first. And there were people like, oh, I think I'd be okay with $10,000 a month. Like, these people wanted obscene salaries from me. They're like living in California, and they like, I would need 6 figures a year to do this job. I'm like, great. Like, maybe there's some marketing agencies who can pay a media buyer that much. I am not one of them. So when I was talking to you about salary, it was like, I think it was like $3,000 a month,
or 25 even. I think it was either 2,500 or 3,000, and then like 5% of clients I was managing.
Some percentage of the campaigns you'd be managing. Which wasn't going to be a lot. And I remember throwing that out there for you, and you were just like, that sounds great. Like you said, you weren't even trying to make money at that point. So you came to work for me at my agency, AdLeg, which we'll get really detailed into that agency in future episodes here. I think you were pretty much treating that as your main thing at that point.
Yeah, because at that point, like the accountant was like, it was a set and forget. I built that funnel once, and it was just like literally I just adjusted budgets from there. The doctor took absolutely no work. It was uploading an Excel sheet once a month that my wife did, and then Frank. I still had Frank, but most of that stuff was done. Mostly I was just like, I had to call Frank once a day. So I basically was just full-time focused on everything AdLeg and trying to steal all of your operations. No, I think I was pretty bought in at that point. I think I was really enjoying the work is what happened initially with AdLeg.
My background was as an entrepreneur and a bad employee. A good employee when I needed to be, but not someone who ever wanted to be an employee. You came from a background of like really hard work. So once you applied that to something that you were actually interested in and good at, you were a huge asset to the company, obviously to the point where I wanted to partner with you on the next company. So at what point then, and I know the answer, but at what point did you stop working with Frank?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it was a very tragic situation. I got a call by his office manager one day. Like, I hadn't heard from Frank in like a week, which was abnormal. But I was like, in my mind, was just like, oh, no news is good news. Like, and we were wrapped up into AdLeg. I think at the time we were even starting into Lead Solo maybe. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, anyways, his office manager calling me and was like, have you heard about Frank and Amanda yet? And I was like, oh no, like what happened? And yeah, he said they were murdered in their own home. So him and his wife were murdered. They were shot in their own house by one of their employees. And at the time, they didn't know what was going to happen with the companies. So they had 3 companies. Their kids were like just graduating university. Neither of the children had worked in the company or any of the companies or had any interest in any of the companies prior. They had no business sense at all. It was very sticky and very messy, but the office manager said that he was going to, for the next year, he was going to manage the companies and like try and turn a profit so the kids had something. So like they could at least sell the company. They just want to go into the ground. And so like very quickly, I went from $3,000 a month to $1,500 a month because I took a hit because they weren't making a lot of money. Turns out Frank was operator, right? Like he wasn't a business owner, he was a business operator. And so without him, the businesses did not fare very well. And then it was just kind of a dwindle. At one point, I was working for free, really just kind of trying to help the office manager out at that point and hope that the kids got some sort of payout from it. And then it just got really awkward and I ended up just stopping doing anything.
Yeah, that's like just such a crazy story to me.
Yeah.
I don't know even how to like react, you know?
Right.
Like I'm smiling just because it's so weird and crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously, like what a tragedy.
And for me too, like I obviously had a relationship with Frank, but like I'd never met the man. I never even saw him. Like even the FaceTime in Croatia, his camera was off. Like I don't even know, like I only know now from the newspaper articles.
Yeah. So of all the ways to lose a client, you would never think of that one.
So it just means that I'm fantastic and clients only cancel with me when they die.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
Yep. You got to be that good.
So that happened. And now you're just really all in on AdLeg. And you had been doing well. Like you said, you're getting a percentage of the campaigns you're managing. You've been managing more and more campaigns. So you were making a decent living working for AdLeg.
And you promoted me to whatever my title was at that point. I think you gave me a bump in salary or something, or maybe it was just a bump in commission. But either way, I was making decent money. Like I was making $5,000 or $6,000 a month or maybe more.
Yeah. So that's basically then the end of your freelancing journey.
That was it. Yep. From there is when you proposed starting a company with me.
So actually the next episode, we're going to talk some about our failed attempts. Just along the way, different things we had tried. Drew mentioned the hypnotherapy funnel and all that stuff. So we'll go a little deeper on that and just some other things we had tried. Because I always knew that just being a Google Ads generalist and doing Google Ads for everyone wasn't the way to grow a company. So tried a lot of different things along the way. A lot of things didn't work until one thing finally worked and took off. So in the next show, we're just going to talk about things that didn't work.
And I was very fixated on like the get rich quick side of things. The find one thing that you can scale the crap out of and make a bunch of money with. And so there's a lot of pitfalls there.
Yeah. So we better plug our group. We have nothing else to plug.
Yeah, we got to sell you something.
We need to plug the group again. So come join us in our very free group.
Very expensive free group.
ThatAgencyGroup.com.
ThatAgencyGroup.com. The only price is just don't be an idiot, please.
Yeah. If you're an idiot, you're gone. You can just join the group and not even interact at all, and you can stay. So come join us there, That Agency Group.
Leave all your comments there. I know in the last episode I mentioned like commenting and wherever you're watching this, I'd love for that. But really bring your comments and questions and things to the group. That's where we will be spending a lot of time and answering questions and whatnot and helping curate our future episodes after the first 374 we have prepped.
So next time we'll be talking all about failure. And I can't wait.
Yes, sir.